Paint me surprised, they didn't skip the Mitsuri scene. Yes, the Kimetsu no Yaiba Demon Slayer Swordsmith Village arc is finally here. Watched the first episode, which I think was a full hour long, technically, 2-episode length, and my gosh, it's back. Like, I'm back to actually being interested in Demon Slayer. For those that don't know, I was pretty harsh on the Entertainment Disc arc. I mean, I acknowledged it was beautiful, amazing animation, all that stuff, but the story was just not there for me. Now, getting it into this Village arc, already with this first episode, I'm into it. We already have some intrigue, we have some it's a small world aspect happening with connections to Tanjiro, but overall, it was a really interesting arc, and yes, I have to say it, Mitsuri, I'm on board. I'm on board with Mitsuri. I think the brief introduction that we had of her way back when Tanjiro was first brought to the group, there wasn't really much there. I mean, I do get a little annoyed by her quirk. Like, each one of them have to have a quirk because that's just how shonen writing is. Every character has to have a quirk, and that pretty much spells everything about them. But man, thick. Thighs and thick. And like I said, was very surprised they actually had her in the onsen, which I thought they were going to... I think most people were assuming they were going to skip it. And I'm sure the people that watched the movie probably knew that it wasn't skipped. But again, this is my first introduction into this segment, is watching this. So really good, though. Have to say, though, the beginning segments of this episode was, like, rough. I honestly was... my introduction to this season with that opening segment was like, that sucks. I get that it's the Infinity Castle, and they're really kind of emphasizing the size of it, the scope of it, but just way too much CGI panning around these buildings for, like, it felt like 5 minutes straight of nothing but that. And obviously having Akaza being thrown around it's just like, okay, I get it, it's big, just stop, move on. It feels like it took up way too much of this episode. But obviously that meeting was very, very, very insightful. Obviously getting a perspective of these upper five and the hierarchy system within them. Really interesting to see that, at least with number one, Koku Shibo, I'm just going to call him number one from now on. Number one really kind of emphasizing to Akaza that there's a hierarchy system here. Not so much that, because that's just what number one's claiming. He's claiming that he has to keep order by there being a hierarchy system and to respect the hierarchy system. So when Akaza keeps smashing Doma, he kind of puts into his head, you know, look, there's a system here. It's to keep order, basically. But again, that's from number one's position. The more interesting thing about this number system is the assumption is that it's power. If you're number 5, then you're weaker than number 1. But Muzan specifically says he put them in order of how much humanity they have left. Which, yes, technically makes sense. The less humanity you have, the more demon you have, the more powerful you are, whatever. But it can also sort of put into play this idea of failure. You don't want somebody up high in the list that has too much humanity in them and they'll mess up. Like, pretty much how he points out that why Gyatoro failed is because he was too connected to Daki. And he messed up really bad. He knew he was going to mess up. Which is funny that he would allow him into the system, and even though he doesn't like change, he would still allow him in, even knowing that he's going to fail. This is exactly what he hates, but he still let him in. I think even with the last meeting that they had, I was fascinated by Muzan and how he sort of interacts with the other demons, the uppers. There's obviously a fear they have of Muzan, but at the same time, they still have their own minds, and they still react differently. But yes, obviously the big shocker in this, and unless I missed it before, it's been a long time since I watched Season 1, and Season 2 didn't really seem to have much in there for me. Yes, sort of showing off number 1, which is this guy, Koku Shibo, which, yes, seems awfully familiar. Now, I have to admit, I thought this dude was his father. I thought this was Tanjiro's father. I'm like, is it gonna be that small world? I sort of thought there was going to be some sort of tie-in with this person. They kept showing him every time when he woke up Tanjiro back in Mugen Train, all that kind of stuff. I assumed he was going to be still in the story. I was hoping it wouldn't be as simple as, oh, he became a demon. That big shock. The number one of this entire system is somehow connected to Tanjiro. It's a shonen. Shonens do this. It's always going to be this case with shonens, but honestly, like I said, I do have to admit that with how many flashbacks they showed of this guy, number 1, I hate that name, Koku. I'm gonna call him Koku from now on. How many times they show Koku in these like brief flashbacks and images for Tanjiro? I kind of assumed that he was going to. I thought that it was his father, but I assumed it was going to be somebody special. But that was quickly dispelled for me, thankfully, that they, I guess, showed a brief flashback of Tanjiro's father, so that it kind of shows Andrew, you're being stupid. It's not his dad. So we get this little brief flashback of Tanjiro's father with Koku, and I guess that's where it kind of started, because Koku saved Tanjiro's father and mother and helped him be born. But additionally, it seems like at that point he probably bestowed upon Tanjiro's father the sun-breathing technique, or at least his skills and his ability. And of course that's been passed down to Tanjiro. Of course he hasn't fully mastered it yet. But it was still interesting. Again, even though it is a little bit of a shonen small world kind of thing, it at least, again, instills upon me a little bit more connection to Tanjiro in the current story we're going into, because as we see at the very end of this episode, this guy's here. Or at least it seems like he's here. I guess I can get into it now. At the very end, Tanjiro's looking around for this special thing that will make him stronger, this weapon that'll make him stronger, that Mitsuri sort of hinted at him. And as he's walking around, he eventually bumps into Michiro and some random boy that's claiming that he has this key that was crafted by, or has a key, and he doesn't want to give it up because his ancestors made it. And then right behind him is Koku. Now this seems odd because, again, the assumption here is that the lead that Gyoku was talking about, that he was going to go with Hantagu with, has something to do with the Sword Village. Now Gyoku could be talking about a lead to find the leader, the Ubayashiki family. But my assumption was that it was this place they were going to. It just seemed like, because story, they said they had a lead, it would lead into the story, unless they're going to do two different fronts with the story. But I don't know, it could be that Kobu just kind of traveled off and found this by happenstance. Or Kobu already knew. Because yeah, Kobu would be a demon slayer turned to a demon. But I don't know, we'll see. But that's pretty crazy for the first episode to immediately have Tanjiro run into this guy. If it's him, I don't know if it's maybe a shapeshifter or something like that. It doesn't seem like Muichiro is bothered by him being there, unless only Tanjiro can see him. So maybe, I don't know, maybe Muichiro doesn't recognize him or know that he's a demon. He's, you know, disguising himself. I don't think we've ever really had a case where somebody is a demon disguised and people don't realize it. Or at least not the Hashira. But it has some fun moments, a little loud for me for comedy routines, but that's just typical Demon Slayer, having Zenitsu screaming for several seconds about how he doesn't want to be on a mission. It's par for the course. It comes with these shonen shows, but I did enjoy a lot of the Inosuke. I've always enjoyed Inosuke, especially, which is surprising because I've grown to really hate his seiyuu. Not that I don't like him, it's just, I'm tired of hearing him. But Inosuke is so different. Just having him up on the ceiling the entire time, he was there for an entire day, just waiting to jump back down. The whole bit of bringing in the cake and dropping it on him, and the girls showing up, and they're all saying that they're happy he's awake, and then this one's like, there's a cake on the bed. A lot of really funny moments. But eventually, yes, leading to Tanjiro going to the Sword Village, which he has to go to completely blindfolded and everything, which I thought was funny because they're talking about how they keep this place a secret. There's like this big process to bringing somebody to the Swords Village. They trade off people, nobody knows the exact route, and then you also have the route changes on a regular basis so that nobody knows where the Swords Village is at. Yet Tanjiro's bringing Nezuko with them. I thought that was funny. They're going through this whole process and they don't want demons to know where this is at, but then he brings Nezuko. Which, yes, they do trust Nezuko at this point, but still, she's still a demon, and she still could be overwhelmed by it and then taken in control by Muzan. Yes, when he got there, what the interesting thing that I found when he first got there is that he gets there and then he goes in and he talks to the chief. And the chief points out that he was crafted a faulty sword. Because Tanjiro's like, this guy keeps yelling at me every time I break the sword. I feel bad. He goes in there and he starts apologizing. I'm sorry I broke the sword again. And he's like, no, it's his fault. He crafted a faulty sword, and I'm like, wait, are we just pointing out the fact that he's just a bad crafter? I don't know. I always kind of put it in the idea that Tanjiro just is so powerful that he's breaking the swords, and it's not so much that anybody that can craft something is going to be impervious for Tanjiro to wield it, but I don't know. It could be that he's just a crappy blacksmith. They're like, oh, we're gonna bring him back. If not, we'll just assign somebody else to you. But yes, that's when we get. That's when we get Mitsuri, which again, I'm really quickly turning to Team Mitsuri at this point. I really did enjoy her introduction here, at least. The idea that she's in there, like I said, didn't censor it. There might be more panels in the manga, but at least they had the scene in there. And then her running down in Tanjiro and her falling out. I'm like, good boy, Tanjiro. I've always said Tanjiro, good boy. As much criticism as Tanjiro gets from a lot of people, I think Tanjiro is a good boy. He's got a good heart. That's his character, is that he's just a good boy. And so, yeah, when Mitsuri's running towards him and about to fall out, he just like, while he's being pushed back, he just grabs and closes. I'm like, dude's got skill. I'm sure everybody that, I mean, yeah, I would have liked it if it happened, but no, he's a good boy. He's not going to do what everybody wants him to do. But yeah, she's Superman. Just kind of, somebody was up there and they claimed that they didn't know who I was, and I'm a Hashira, and she's like, oh, don't worry about it, we have food. Okay, food. But it was cute because it kind of transitioned into a lot of conversation about siblings and stuff like that, because I think that's at its heart is something that I think this writer really likes to instill upon the story, is the importance of siblings and sibling love and stuff. Pointing out Genya, who didn't recognize Mitsuri, and then talking about how Genya might be related to the Wind Pillar, and how they don't talk about each other. And then you have Mitsuri sitting there just playing with Nezuko, super cute. I don't know. I think that's partly why I'm shipping Mitsuri with Tanjiro so much right now, is because she's just like super big sis to Nezuko at the same time as being like a love interest. Because yes, he claims he's gonna squash Muzan, and that makes her completely doki doki because she's looking for somebody that is as strong as her. That's the only reason she joined, is because she's looking for somebody that's a boyfriend that's stronger than her, and she's so powerful that there's barely anybody that's stronger than her. She joins so she can find somebody powerful than her, and she's too dang powerful so she can't find anybody. But yeah, it was super good. I liked every scene with Mitsuri, and I'm looking forward to the rest of this season just because of that. Which, yes, he's kind of leading me into my mindset into what's going on here, and that's kind of what my shonen brain starts to get into is, okay, it's the Swordsmith arc, and they're in this location that is supposed to be unknown, and then you have Tanjiro there, Mitsuri there, Michiro's there, and then you have the adversaries, which, again, I'm assuming 4 and 5 is going to be there, but at least number 1, upper 1 is there. So I'm already kind of laying out the possible fight, and plus you have, of course, the OP, which is obviously going to spoil things, which I didn't really take too much note of. Again, 4 and I think 4 at least was in that OP, so I'm assuming that 4 is there. But again, it was on the subject of the family that they were looking for, and so I assumed that Gyoku had that, not 4 or 5. But yeah, we'll see where this goes. I'm very interested to see how everything's going to work with Kobu and his relationship with Tanjiro. Like I said at the very beginning, the thing that Muzan pointed out was that he based their rank on how much humanity they have. So the assumption is that, I'm assuming that it was the way up. So 1 has less than 5. And if that's the case, then Kokishibo shouldn't have really any humanity left, or at least that's the assumption. So I'll be curious if there's any way that Tanjiro ever even connects to him, and how much he would even recognize Tanjiro, if he's even savable at this point. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of like back and forth between the two of them and really establishing that connection that he once had with his father. And I think that's one of the bigger parts of this particular arc that I'm already kind of interested in, aside from, yes, Mitsuri. Aside from Mitsuri. Anyways, that's my thoughts on episode 1 of Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba, the Swordsmith arc, season 3, whatever you want to call it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, make sure to hit that like button down below. Comment, let me know what you thought of the episode if you're going to be checking it out. Comment, let me know what you thought of the episode. Additionally, if you're new to the channel, make sure that subscribe button so you got my content. I do news, reviews, first impressions, top list. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you want to support the channel more, I have a Patreon link, tips link, super thanks, and membership button down below. I greatly appreciate what it does, and y'all take care.